Today, Prime Minister Trudeau admitted his office knew of a complaint against the former Chief of Defence Staff, Jonathan Vance, back in 2018, just didn't know the details. Here's how that played out in question period.
Everyone around this Prime Minister was aware of the sexual harassment allegations in 2018. Why, in 2019, did the Prime Minister extend the contract of the Chief of Defence Staff and give him a promotion?
You're right, Honourable Prime Minister. In 2018, my office was aware of the minister's direction to the Ombudsman. But my office and I learned of the details of the allegation through news reporting over the past months.
General Vance is under investigation for alleged sexual misconduct. So is his successor, Admiral Art MacDonald. And CBC News broke the news. The military commander in charge of human resources was himself investigated for inappropriate behavior back in the 90s. Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan says his office is looking into all these cases. Retired Lieutenant General Guy Thibault is the chair of the Conference of Defence Associations Institute Board. He was also Canada's former Vice Chief of Defence Staff. Hi, General Thibault. Good to see you. Thanks for making the time this evening.
Good evening, Vashi.
I should say we stole some of your time from a very busy week. You're involved in the Ottawa Conference on Security and Defence. And I just wanted to start off by asking you how the events of the past month, kicked off by reporting from our colleagues over at Global News, have impacted the conference, like how you think it might impact it.
Well, clearly, when we were planning the conference, we really were not thinking at all about the issues that have come to the fore. And clearly we couldn't hold kind of a premier conference on defense and security here in Ottawa and not find the right way to incorporate some of the issues that we're seeing play out on the issues of sexual misconduct, culture in our armed forces, and take advantage of some of the guest speakers that we have coming in to talk about some of these issues as well. So, for example, today we had the Chief of Defence Staff from Australia, General Campbell, talking a little bit about the Australian Defence Force's experiences, similarly with dealing with these cultural issues of inappropriate behavior, and how, as a military force, it's really important to have the respect of your citizens, to have confidence in the leadership. And so for the Canadian Forces, clearly this is a big issue, and for our conference on defense and security, it is also an issue that we know is important to be talked about.
Do you think there are lessons to be learned from other jurisdictions, as you point out, for example, in Australia? Like, are there jurisdictions who have managed to see a culture shift?
Well, I think that in all of our Western militaries, where our societies are changing around us in dramatic ways in terms of our demographics, in terms of really the social expectations and norms that we see in our societies, our militaries all need to adapt and stay relevant and be seen as an organization that are going to attract good talent. And so in that sense, the same issues of diversity and inclusion and ensuring you've got a safe work environment are important to all of our friends and allies. And I think that we are always looking for others to see if we can learn from them. So I know that in our own efforts to stamp out sexual misconduct and deal with inappropriate behavior, we've got a program of work that did consider how others were approaching these similar issues, and we'll continue to do that, or the Canadian Forces will continue to do that, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come.
You mentioned so many high-profile people who are part of this conference. It also usually, when it's in person, I know I've attended as a journalist, brings together, many members of the military community. I know you're obviously very much a part of that community. How would you describe, I guess, the conversations taking place right now, or the reaction from within the ranks around what has come to light?
Well, I'm not as closely in touch with the pulse of the organization as I once was, but certainly I can attest to the fact that everyone that I've spoken with, I don't think I've heard anyone speak in any other ways to say that they're shook by these revelations, as the members of the Institute and CDA have kind of published in our own statement. There is nothing more important than the confidence of Canadians in the institution and the trust of the men and women who serve in their leaders. And I think that this really has got a crisis of confidence in the leadership from both sides. Canadians looking at the organization, the institution, and asking questions, legitimate questions, and I think the rank and file also looking up and wondering the same. So it's a big issue, it's a big concern. Having said that, I think that we've got a great team in place who are going to hopefully take very thoughtful actions to address the issues that have been brought to the fore. At the heart of it is the need to complete the investigations into the allegations that have been brought forward against General Vance, the allegations against the Chief of Defence Staff, Admiral MacDonald, and new revelations about Admiral Hayden Edmondson that were brought forward today. They all need to be looked at. They all need to be, in the coolness of kind of reflection, allow the independence of those investigations to happen. And then if there's actions that need to be taken and people held to account, then that has to take place in due course as well.
On the subject of leadership, General, you heard that exchange off the top between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. How important is it, do you think, to get answers on what the government knew and when?
Well, I don't want to enter into, first of all, I don't know much about, who knew what, when, more than that which has been reported. And, I watched the testimony of the Ombudsman and I've heard all of the reporting that's come from then. But clearly, when it comes to, anyone in the Canadian Forces that has had an allegation brought against them, I would expect that there's going to be a lot of curiosity to follow that to the conclusions that it's been thoroughly looked at, and those kind of allegations, if they had been brought forward to a person in authority, then I would have hoped that they would have been chased down to make sure that they found if there was something there or if there was nothing there. And so that's all I really have to say on that issue.
And just before I let you go, General, I wanted to ask you one last thing about the military's approach going forward to the larger cultural issue, and specifically on something that it sounds like might be coming to fruition, and that is the idea of a quote-unquote truly independent center for sexual misconduct, where investigations can take place. What is your thought on that? Because there's a semi-independent one, but some of the major issues brought to light through, for example, Madame Deschamps' report certainly highlighted the need for something extremely independent.
Well, and I think that we have to parse the issues. I think Madame Deschamps' the call for an independent center was to ensure that members who had experienced harmful behavior, inappropriate conduct, could have a safe place to report for the purposes of making sure that, especially if there was a concern about the chain of command being part of the problem, that they wouldn't fear repercussions or reprisals or career implications. And so I think that was at the heart of the report. And I think that the reporting is different from the investigation. I think that the investigation, especially when it applies to members of the Canadian Armed Forces, really is uniquely kind of positioned for the National Investigative Service. And I know that there have been questions about the independence of the NIS as well. I think at this point, whatever is going to be done needs to be done to make sure that we're going to fix the problem that is at issue. If reporting is an issue, I think that there's a number of things that can be done to make sure that people who have concerns can bring those concerns forward. And if that means bringing it to a completely outside body, outside of the current structure that's in place for sexual misconduct, then I think we should do it in favor of supporting our members. When it comes to the investigation of members of the Canadian Forces that are subject to the Code of Service Discipline, well, I think this is an issue which should be really examined, very closely, because I think that when it comes to maintaining operational effectiveness for the conduct of operations overseas, the NIS, looking at sensitive and serious allegations of breach of the criminal code or breach of the Code of Service Discipline in accordance with the National Defence Act, is something that the military police and the National Investigative Service is uniquely designed to deliver on. So, I would just hope that, we don't rush to make some of these decisions made, that we really think about them, because there's often second and third order consequences that we hadn't fully thought of when we undertook some of these decisions. So I think make sure we got the problem that we're trying to fix right, and then make sure that the solutions are actually going to address those problems.
All right, I'll leave it on that note. Thank you very much, General Thibault. Appreciate your time as always, and best of luck with the conference.
Thanks very much, Vashi.
That's retired Lieutenant General Guy Thibault. He's the chair of the CDA Institute Board. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.